All right, I wanted to do a quick video about importing Rhino objects into Revit. I guess the first thing I'll address is just why would you want to do this? Obviously, it would be nice to do everything inside of Revit natively, and it is only after years of interfacing with both programs and what they can do well and what they can do with difficulty that I've developed this workflow. The truth is that Revit, when it's not doing things parametrically in the work environment, in the family environment, can just be very, very brittle and difficult to create nuanced geometry with. And for that reason, I've taken to doing a lot of the more complicated kind of non-orthogonal families in Rhino and then bringing them into Revit. And this is not without its challenges, but on balance, it has proved to be an effective workflow for me. And one of the biggest challenges to doing it, or to kind of biting off the reality of all the import hassles, was the way I was going to be able to manipulate materials. And so I'm just going to take you through an example that I worked on today that wasn't without its headaches, but is a good, hopefully will serve as a good example of what you can do to bring things from Rhino into Revit. Here we have two of the same similar kind of barbecue object. This is a small barbecue grill that I'm doing for a client in their outdoor kitchen. And this one here, when I import it into Revit, has its problems, which I'll show you in a minute, and this one here does not. Now, if you look at them closely, you will see a few minor differences. This one that has been importing well, if you look at the corners here, is actually doing has some corners here that I've put in instead of the rounded objects. You can see here we have nice smooth objects. But these radiuses, I think this radii here is 1/8 of an inch. And when you start getting down to 1/8 of an inch objects, just kind of, and this is not a scientific analysis, but it's just something I've meted out through hours of work on this thing, is when you start getting down to radii that are in the 1/8 of an inch range, I've found that Revit starts to drop them or just glitch out on them. And so if I have a component of, or an element in the family that I'm trying to bring in that isn't showing up, it's usually because of this. Now, I mean, one of the things that's worth noting is this one up here has the same challenges as this one up here. I'm going to switch over to the Revit environment for a second and just show you this final object that I had coming in here. But if I go back to the family, and we look at this as I bring it in, and I'm gonna delete it for a second. I have several attempts at this before it actually started working. So if I insert a DWG, which is the shuttle file that I use to go from Rhino to Revit pretty consistently, but if I use that program and I do this, you can see I've got several attempts here before it actually worked. And if I take, say, this one here, where I was still using those fillets, and I bring it in, you can see I get this emptiness here. And I was, the first one was even worse. When I brought the first one in and inserted that, you can just see here, I'll take this one and insert number 2. And this one looks like it's okay, but actually when you look at it from the side, it's got transparency here too. And all of that was fixed when I finally simplified some of the edge conditions to hard corners and just inserted it in as a more, for lack of a better term, I'll say, a more faceted object. I wanted to give a brief aside about the file format that I use to export from Rhino into Revit. What I do is I select the objects I want to export. I go up here, I say export selected, and then you get this dialog box coming up. You want to select the AutoCAD drawing DWG, and I actually get rid of all of the checks in this column here. And then it's really important to also go over to this options submenu and make sure to select the 2007 solids. If you select any of these other ones, they are not friendly to Revit perceiving them as solids. So the work that you've done being perceived as a solid. So select the 2007 solids. That's given me the best results. I say OK, and then I just hit save. And if you follow those criteria, you should get a pretty good export. All right, back to the video. Thanks. Now you can see, and I'm just going to go back to how it was when I first inserted it here. And maybe the fastest thing to do might be to simply go back to this one and just open this up again. So I'll just go into here. Come on, and I'll open that up. And you can see I've got, you know, different colors showing up here. I've got a texture for this big green egg product that was fairly signature to this product line. And if I'll just say that when I brought this in, not only to go back to the Rhino file for a second, not only did I, and this is the one that I actually wound up bringing in, but if we go over here and we look at the layers that I have here, I actually did put all the different objects, all the different materials on different layers. So this this one here was on the green surface layer. This one here is a silver, and I put it on the silver steel layer. And you'll find that when you import that into Revit, and you go to the Manage tab, say this is the first time you've inserted it, and you go to the Manage tab, and the Object Styles, bring that over here, and go to Import, all of those layers are brought in this way. And I actually renamed these layers. They were originally just said the exact same thing they said in Rhino. And I gave them just these suffixes because the way you apply materials to these imported DWG objects that you bring in from Rhino is not, you know, the same as you would with a regular Revit family where you find yourself selecting the object and then assigning a material to it. It's not that way with these one-off objects that you're only going to be using a handful of times, and you're not flexing them parametrically. They're a product that you're trying to show in your Revit model that's not going to be, you know, manipulated a lot. What happens then is you bring these, you know, you load this into your project, and it says overwrite, but so there it is right there. And if I just go up to the Manage tab and go to the Object Styles, you know, because of the naming that you assigned it when you were creating your family, if you go to Imports in Families, you will find your 4 or 5 materials listed here. So if I, for example, go to this BGE Mini green surface here, and I go here, and I just pick a very different, you know, a beverage material here for this instead of the big green egg, and I get out of here, and I ask it to re-render, you can see it's giving me a transparent material there instead of the big green egg. So this is how I've found, this is kind of the best workflow I've found for creating these objects in Revit in a way where I can still manipulate materials and yet use the functionality of Rhino to allow us some sophistication in the geometry. Otherwise, modeling these things in Revit is just super time consuming, and I just find it's a layer of complexity that's not necessary if you have a comfort level with Rhino. I hope this short video was helpful, and good luck making those nice renderings in Revit. Hopefully Rhino can help you do it. Take care.